Hey everybody, Phil here. I am going to do my first hand breakdown today and get to do some PLO strategy this time. I know a lot of you watching play No Limit Hold'em, and I will certainly be talking about that in the future, but all the poker I play these days is PLO, and that's what we're going to talk about.
Every hand is just so huge.
There's a call from Veni. Lots of money in the middle right now. The biggest pot we've seen for some time.
This first hand that I chose is a very special hand to me. It's the final hand of the first match, the Galfond Challenge. For those who are not familiar with the Galfond Challenge, it's kind of too long of a story for me to tell you in an intro to a video. But the gist is I was playing this match. It was 25,000 hands against a very tough opponent at 100, 200 PLO. That's 20,000 euro buy-in. We had a side bet, my 200,000 to his 100,000 on who would come out ahead at the end of 25,000 hands. And this started off terribly for me. I actually lost 900,000 straight in about, I want to say 8,000 hands, and actually made the full comeback to be in contention on the very final day of the challenge, which was extremely improbable. Not just making that comeback and being in it on the final day, but actually the final day, like the final 500 hands in the match even mattering. Usually in these cases, a winner will already have been decided, and it's kind of a formality to play it out. And not only did we get down to the final 500 hands or so, we actually got down to the final 100 hands. Through most of this day, he was in the lead, and there's actually a lot of really interesting strategy that was entirely new to me, because it's a new format where it's kind of a cash game and kind of a tournament. There were many hands where I couldn't make the right play for a cash game, because if I were, say, to lose 5,000 in this individual pot, I would be the loser of the challenge. And so I had to play defensively, or sometimes I had to play offensively. And actually more often I had to play offensively. So in this last hand, we are under 100 hands to play. We switched from 2 tables to 1 table so that we could each exactly count the hands and the results, because those factors were so important in our decision making. If one player were to get up a certain amount at this point, and it kind of depends on the number of hands that have been played, they can just sit out and fold the rest of the hands and win, which is at this point the right decision, because the 300,000 euro swing on the side bet far outweighs folding away 1,000 in big blinds, or whatever the case may be. Well, I guess that's the context. So you already know this is the final hand, so it's going to be a bigger one. We've mostly been trading small pots back and forth. And as of late, I've been the aggressor. He spent most of the day in the lead, as I mentioned, and I was trying to force him to make decisions early in the hand to either fold or risk playing a really big pot, because what I didn't want to do was lose like 4,000 euro. What I did want to do was give myself the opportunity to win 15,000 euro in a pot, because we were so close to the fold out on either side that even though he was ahead a little bit, with a big win, I could get to the point where I could fold out and win. But he could do it with a small win. And so basically my approach was, look, if we're going to play a pot where I risk losing, we're going to play a big pot so that he's risking losing as well. And so I upped my aggression. I upped my bet sizes on early streets, for these purposes. So let's get into the hand, and I'll talk you through what I was thinking as I was playing. So I am dealt Queen 10, 10, 8, single suited on the button. Good hand. I'm opening a lot of hands here. He's not 3-betting very much. He's playing passively, all the reasons I mentioned. He's doing a lot of open limping on the button. So I hit a huge flop. I have the pair of tens, which is not that valuable at this point in comparison to the rest of my hand, but I have a flush draw and a wrap, which is just a massive draw. Against a set, I'm actually a small favorite here. I'm betting full pot with a lot of hands. Like I said, if I'm gonna lose, a couple thousand chips, or risk losing a few thousand chips, I want to be able to win a whole bunch. And so I'm forcing him to tough decisions on the flop. So basically what I do on this flop is I'm going to take a bunch of good hands and pot with them, and then a bunch of kind of weaker, mediocre hands. And then, of course, some weak hands that have strong equity or a high chance to improve. So like a weak nut flush draw here, like ace, king, three, deuce with nut diamonds. That's a hand that normally would check back here because of the match dynamic and because of how badly I want to win a big pot. And he therefore cannot check raise aggressively and cannot kind of punish me in any real way. Like the way he punishes me is by calling, and then I miss, and he wins the pot. But any hand that can turn the nuts, or near nuts, I'm gonna play really aggressively because I just want to gamble. Like I really want to flip for stacks right here, given the point in the match that we're at. So I pot this hand. Of course, this is value. I have a massive hand, and we're gonna see him call. Turn is the 4 of diamonds. Now, usually in this spot, a 10 high flush is the kind of hand you would check back on this board. So what you're hoping to accomplish is, it's not a hand that can bet 2 streets for value. And so generally when you're building your value betting ranges on the turn, especially in PLO, this is a little bit less true in Hold'em, but it's still a good concept to have in mind. You want to build value ranges that can bet multiple streets. So what I mean by that is, generally speaking, as a rule of thumb, the hands that I want to value bet on this turn are hands that I can continue value betting on river. So full houses, nut flush with like a 9 or something. So I block some full houses. That's kind of as thinly as I want to go for value. And then hands like a 10 high flush, I would check back. And now I can induce bluffs on the river, or I can bet, check, bet, and get my value across 2 streets that way. When you go bet, bet, check, the problem with that, especially on a board like this that's more locked down, there's not a lot of equity to deny when you have flush. His hands that are folding are drawing dead to a flush almost. So the problem with bet, bet, checking is that I prevent him from being able to bluff on the river. I just miss out on my opportunity to win from his misdraws. And let's say even like queen 10-9, that's a pretty good hand on the flop, but then the river 10 means that everything got there, and now he has to turn that into a bluff because otherwise he's never bluffing. So generally with a 10 high flush, you want to check back in a spot like this. However, this hand has some very unique properties for 10 high flushes. It has 4 outs to effectively the nuts, 2 outs to literal nuts with the straight flush draw, queen of diamonds, 7 of diamonds, and then 2 outs to an overfull, 10 of hearts, 10 of spades. And so what I decided to do here is go ahead and bet half pot, get my 1 street of value with my 10 high flush, check back river. But if I improve to one of my 4 outs, which is going to happen about 10% of the time, now I have a hand that can value bet 3 streets. And so sometimes you do want to make a turn value bet with a hand that's probably not going to value bet the river, but is value betting now, but has enough cards that it can value bet that it's worth building a pot. The other nice thing about this, given the match dynamic, is that he really doesn't want to raise. It actually doesn't benefit him. I think if I were to half pot this turn and then check river and lose, I don't quite lose the match, but I get close. But he doesn't, by raising and opening himself up to getting full stacks in, there are not a lot of hands that want to do that, and he actually rather induce with the hands that are good enough to do that. He'd rather check call and let me bluff the river or let me value cut myself. So a unique spot where I think value betting a 10 high flush is the right decision. Now, obviously, I hit the dream river, or one of the 4 dream rivers here with the 10 of spades. So I do get to make that value bet that 10% of the time I was going to get to make. So it's not as if, I necessarily planned for this to happen, but I did plan for this to happen as part of all of the factors that I'm considering. I planned for this to happen 10% of the time, and that was enough to shift my turn decision to provide myself the opportunity to play a big pot here. So I'll go ahead with a little bit of a spoiler, which is that my opponent has 9-4 for a turned full house, a weak full house. So he loses all full houses. He beats a little bit of value, just the nut flush. But he does block Jack 4, 9-4, 9-9, all of which are, that makes up a big portion of my value range right there. So he does make the call. I remember at this point, I'm very quickly trying to figure out exactly how much I'm up and exactly how many hands are left. And I couldn't figure out if I needed to fold this hand or not. So obviously I have a really good hand in the big blind that I would normally be excited to play, but I think I can fold to victory, and I'm tanking down trying to figure it out. I eventually do figure it out and sit out to confirm, but fold this hand. And the rest is history, or actually that is the rest.
Oh my God.
River's the full house. We're going to have to confirm these numbers, but that might have done it. That might have been the final hand. Phil is folded and sitting out. He's done it. It is over. Phil
Is it
comes
confirmed?
back, rises from the ashes, was dead. People said he was washed out. They said he was done. They said he should retire. He came back from being down 900,000 euros and wins it at the 0 hour here on Easter Sunday.